Another problem heading into November for President Biden and former President Trump could be potential spoilers, or what people call as spoilers, those either independents or third party candidates. And I want to talk about them now. You
Mhm.
posed this question: if the 2024 election for president were held today and it was between the following candidates, who would you vote for? And I would like you to rattle off that laundry list that you had, because it has independents, Green Party candidates, people like that.
Sure. So the choices are Donald Trump running as a Republican Party candidate, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party candidate, Robert F. Kennedy as an independent candidate, Cornel West as an independent candidate, Jill Stein as the Green Party candidate. And then in the first iteration of the question, we also have a don't know, unsure um, uh, uh, choice. And what we see is that the answers, they don't change the relative horse race between President Trump and President Biden. With the undecided voters, it's Trump is at 41%, Biden is at 35%, and then the independent candidates are altogether at about 14%, and 10% are on the fence, unsure, don't know. There's definitely about 10 voters, or about a quarter of the voter base out there, that really are undecided. They're on the fence. They're not leaning towards the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. And this is very consistent in our polling, especially given the fact that 60% of voters communicate clearly that they don't want a rematch of the 2020 election, that they don't want Biden or Trump to run again in this new election cycle.
Let's talk about those numbers a bit, because it is 2024 is the Groundhog Day of 2020. It's the sequel no one is really asking for, according to these numbers here, because the majority of Americans don't want to see President Biden run again or former President Donald Trump. Talk about that disparity for us.
Well, when we ask the question, do you think that President Biden should run for a second term or not? Close to two-thirds, 64%, say that they don't want him to run again. And when we ask the same question about President Trump, do you think he should run for president again in 2024? 54%, again a majority, do not want him to run again. These numbers are unprecedented and historically high when it comes to voters openly and clearly expressing a dissatisfaction with the choices that they are being given by the major parties. Now, if it's a forced choice between Biden and Trump, then voters will either pick or not turn out, and we'll see how that pans out. If there's more choice at the ballot box, then you see already a quarter of all voters are either on the fence and leaning away from these candidates, or coalescing around one of the independent candidates. So a strong independent ticket could actually come with a lot of surprises within this election cycle. And certainly, you've got about 25% of voters in our poll, in this most recent poll, that are very much open and supportive of this idea. That's the floor, that's the hard choice in the ballot test. And then the ceiling is really around two-thirds of the country, two-thirds of the country being dissatisfied with the choices and potentially open to considering a viable third-party run.
I want to move to the Republican response, but before we do, are there any other takeaways that you saw voters perceive from President Biden's State of the Union address?
Well, we asked the question at the end of our battery, which is really the key question. Does the State of the Union speech make you more or less likely to vote for President Biden in November, or does it not have an effect? And amongst those who watched the address, the response was very split. 36% said that they're more likely to vote for him, 37% say that they're less likely to vote for him, and 27% say it does not have any effect. And amongst those who didn't watch the speech, the numbers are worse for the president. 15% said that they're more likely to vote for him, 35% less likely, and 50% said that it does not have an effect. What does this tell us? This tells us that the president getting out there with his message for reelection matters, and voters are open to hearing from both of the candidates on all of the key issues of the day. This speech helped the president in the sense that it helped him get out there and kickstart the election campaign. But it was better received amongst partisans than it was received amongst independents who are on the fence. And by and large, it hasn't really moved the dial for the president. So this is an important question, and the key question really to ask after the speech. And so far, we can't really discern a change in the dynamic, or we can't say that the State of the Union speech was a breakthrough event for the president that is able to put him into a different trajectory.